What's going on, guys? FadeitLuie here, bringing you guys a brand new video. We're gonna be doing a mid-fade comb over, so stay tuned. We're starting off by saturating the hair and combing everything in place, making sure everything's nice and neat. Now that we're done laying down the hair and parting the sides, we can move on to our 3.5 guard with our Oster octanes and debulk the sides. As you guys can see, I'm using a comb to feed the hair into the clipper and I'm flicking out as much as possible. Now that we're done debulking the sides, we can move on to our 5/0 blade, which is equivalent to our trimmers. We're going to create our first guideline, contouring to his head shape. We're also going to switch over to our 3.5 guard again and debulk the beard. Since we're done budding him out and debulking the beard, we can move on to our no guard all the way open and create our second guideline. We're then going to use the lever midway and all the way close to help us erase that initial guideline we created. I hope you guys are enjoying the video. Please leave a like, comment, and subscribe. Greatly appreciated. Also, be sure to make sure you check out the live streams. Now that we're done erasing our initial guideline, we can move on to our 1 guard all the way open and create our third guideline. We're then going to use the lever midway and all the way close to help soften up this line and get ready for the half guard. Now we're moving on to our clipper over comb method, and we're going to use our horizontal strokes to debulk as much as possible. Moving on to our 1.5 guard, we're going to go ahead and create our fourth guideline. We're going to flick out as much as possible, blending into the clipper over comb we did. Sometimes there's still a faint line after using your 1.5 guard, so switching over to your 1 guard all the way open and using the corners will definitely help. Now we're going to switch back and forth between our clipper oval comb method and our 1.5 guard, detailing as much as possible and removing any dark spots. I hope you guys are enjoying the video. Please leave a like, comment, and subscribe. Greatly appreciated. Also, be sure to make sure you check out the live streams. Now that we're done with the blend, we can move on to the sideburns of the beard and start off with our no guard all the way open and slowly closing the lever. We're then going to switch over to our 1.5 guard and our 1 guard all the way open and continue to blend down. Using our NST outliners, we're going to go ahead and remove any stubble that we see and any dark spots. We're also going to use the NST outliners to line up the back of the beard. You want to make sure not to press too hard here because the skin is usually a little softer and you could irritate the skin. Before we line them up with our NST outliners, we're going to go ahead and part the edges from the top of the hair. We're then going to start off at the middle and work our way to the sides. You also want to keep the corners as natural as possible because you could make the lineup look awkward if you dig too deep. Now we're moving on to our C-cup area. We're going to start off at the bottom and work our way to the top arch using the corners of the blade. Now that we're done with the front and sides, we can move on toward the back and use our no guard all the way open to create our second guideline. We're then going to use the lever midway and all the way close to help us erase that initial guideline we created with our Oster octanes. Moving on to our one guard all the way open, we're then going to create our third guideline, and this is going to help us connect the no guard all the way open to the one guard all the way open. After softening up the line with the one guard and its lever, we can then move on to our half guard and erase the line completely. We are right on top of the occipital bone, so you want to make sure you detail as much as possible here. Moving on to our octanes, we're going to use the 3.5 guard and we're going to feed the hair into the clipper using a comb. Now that we're done debulking with the 3.5 guard, we can switch over to our 1.5 guard and erase the line as much as possible. Sometimes there's still a faint line after using your 1.5 guard, so switching over to your one guard all the way open and using its corners will definitely help. Moving on to our shears, we're going to make sure the hair is nice and saturated so we can get the hair's true length, and we're also going to create a guideline throughout the middle and follow it to the sides. When you're using shears, you always want to grab the hair with the comb and feed it into your fingers and keep them as straight as possible. You also want to make sure you don't go past the second knuckle so it lowers the likelihood of you cutting your fingers. We're then going to add some finishing details with our clipper over comb method, and we're going to use our horizontal strokes to make sure we debulk. Now that we're done with the haircut, we can move on to our Turkish razor and Derber premium blades and make them as crispy as possible. You always want to stretch the skin with your opposite hand and keep the blade at a 45-degree angle. This will lower the likelihood of you cutting someone. What's going on, guys? FadeitLuie here, bringing you guys a brand new video. We're gonna be doing a mid fade on my boy, so stay tuned. Since he has curly hair, we started off by saturating the hair and combing everything in place, making sure everything's nice and neat, and then we're gonna move on to our gold FX and create our first guideline. It's always best to contour the guideline to their head shape so that the fade can flow better and be more unique. Now that we're done balding them out, we're going to move on to our no guard all the way open and create our second guideline. You want to make this guideline around 1 inch thick so you can spread the blend. Also, we're going to then use the lever midway and all the way close and attack that initial guideline we created with our gold FX. Now that we're done erasing our initial guideline, we can move on to our 1 guard all the way open and create our second guideline. We're going to use this same guard and its lever to soften up this line and then get ready for the half guard. Now that we're done softening up the line with the 1 guard and its lever, we can then move on to our half guard and erase the line completely. This is going to officially connect the 1 guard all the way open to the no guard all the way open. I hope you guys are enjoying the video. Please leave a like, comment, and subscribe. It's greatly appreciated. Also, if you guys want to show some extra support, go ahead and leave a follow down below on Instagram, or go ahead and subscribe to the membership down below. With this membership, you're going to gain access to private lives and private videos and one-on-one class sessions. As you guys can see, we're moving on to our 2 guard all the way open, and we're going to create our 4th guideline. This is going to help us get ready for our 1.5 guard and blend between the 1 guard all the way open to the 2 guard all the way open. Now that we're done with our 2 guard and our 1.5 guard, we're going to move on to our 3 guard all the way open and flick out as much as possible. Moving on to our clipper oval comb method, we're going to make sure the silhouette is nice and neat and boxy. Also making sure there's no flyaway hairs, no hairs poking out through the side, and everything's nice and flush to the even fade. Using your horizontal cuts to debulk and your vertical cuts to blend is very crucial when using clipper oval comb. It's also critical to make sure that the hair is nice and damp when using clipper oval comb so you can pick it up nice and easy. Now that we're done with our clipper oval comb method, we're going to go back to our lower guards and detail as much as possible, especially with our no guard all the way open. Moving on to the back of the fade, we're going to use our no guard all the way open and create our second guideline. We're then going to slightly close the lever midway and all the way close and attack that initial guideline at the bottom. Now that we're done erasing our initial guideline, we can move on to our one guard all the way open and create our third guideline. We are right on top of the occipital bone here, so you want to make sure you spend more time here in detail as much as possible. Now that we're done softening up the line with our one guard and its lever, we can move on to our half guard and erase the line completely. This is going to help us blend between our no guard all the way open and our one guard all the way open. Now that we're done with our lower guards, we can move on to our two guard all the way open and create our fourth guideline. This guideline is going to help us blend in with our 1.5 guard. As you guys can see, now that the guideline is soft enough, we can move on to our 1.5 guard and erase the line completely. Using our clipper oval comb method and our horizontal and vertical cuts, we're going to debulk and blend the hair in the back, connecting it to our fade on the bottom. You want to make sure to be careful because you could make an indentation with your clipper oval comb method, so you want to make sure your silhouette is nice and full. Now that we're done saturating the hair, we can move on to our shears. And we're going to go ahead and grab the hair with our comb, holding it with our fingers, and cutting it with our shears. So we feed the hair into our fingers with our comb, and then cut it with our shears. You also want to make the hair that you grab is even with the hair that you grabbed previously. Each part should be equal and also cut at a certain angle, whichever angle is needed depending on where you're cutting on the head. If you're cutting near the occipital bone or you're cutting near the silhouette area on the edges, you have to cut at a certain angle, blending in the hair into the hair on the other side. Again, you're combing the hair into your fingers, you're holding it tight, and you're cutting it with your shears. Now that we're done with our shear work on top, we can move on to the front line and comb all of his hairs down, facing the direction that they grow. Now that the hairs are laid down, we can move on to our one guard all the way open and go with the grain, debulking them. Since we're done debulking the hair, we can move on to our hairspray and make sure that all the hairs are stiff and that they don't shift when using our Goat FX. Moving on to our Goat FX, we're going to start off at the middle and work our way to the sides, going as slow as possible, making sure that the hair feeds into the teeth of the trimmer. Usually if you don't go slow enough, the hair's going to shift and then you won't line them up properly. When you're lining up C-cups, you always want to start off at the bottom and work your way to the top arch using the corners of the blade. You also want to make sure you're not pressing too hard because you could bite them with the teeth of the trimmer, especially if you're using Goat FX. that we were done finishing the other side, we then moved on to our Go to Effects, and we're repeating the same process, making sure everything's nice and even and matched. I hope you guys are enjoying the video. Please leave a like, a comment, and subscribe is greatly appreciated. Also, if you guys want to show some extra support, go ahead and leave a follow down below on Instagram, or go ahead and subscribe to the membership down below. With this membership, you're going to gain access to private lives and private videos and one-on-one class sessions. We're then going to line up the mustache. I always start off at the outer edge and then work my way to the inner edge of the mustache. Then with the goatee, I always like to use my headrest and make them lay down so that they're nice and still and they're not moving while I'm lining up their beard. Now that we're done shaving off the hair from his face, we can move on to our Turkish razor and Durban premium blades and make him as crispy as possible. But before we do that, we're going to apply some shave gel so that the razor can glide better. Now that we're done applying the shave gel, we're going to keep the razor at a 45-degree angle for the most part and use our opposite hand to pull the skin and keep it as taut as possible.